Welcome back, Wogglers. So today we're going to be talking about segments here in Zoho Campaigns, how to make one, what is it, how is it different from a list. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to, on that left-hand side, go ahead and click Contacts. So this is going to give you a couple of different options. So the first one is Manage Lists, and then a little bit further down the line is Segments. So I'm going to go ahead and click on Segments, and it'll take us here. So the biggest question that I get around these two different things is, what's the difference really between a segment and a list? Because you can send a campaign to either one of those things. And the easiest way to think about it is a list is static in nature. It's kind of a snapshot in time. So you can manually update it, and you can have a list that has criteria, but what it's going to do is it's only going to look at the contacts in your system at that moment that meet that criteria. If one of those, if the new contacts come in that meets that criteria, you can set up some automations or workflow rules around having them get automatically added to that list, but you have to set up something auxiliary to do that. The list itself isn't going to do that. However, a segment will. So if you set up a segment that has specific criteria on it, it's going to search your existing contacts in your system that meet that criteria and add them to the segment. And then any contacts that you add in the future, if it meets that criteria, it will add them to the segment. In that same way, if you have someone that is on that segment that stops meeting that criteria, they'll fall off the segment. So how to set one up? As you saw on that left-hand side underneath contacts, you're going to click segment and then create segment. So you can create a segment or a bulk segment. A bulk segment is more to do with kind of like much bigger, I mean, as it's bulk, right? Today we're going to set up a regular old segment. And then the first thing that you're going to want to do is you're going to want to think about, what is this segment for? What kind of criteria do we want to set for our contacts that we want to be in this segment? And then you would name it. You can name it first if you already know going into the segment what you're doing. But for here, let's decide that we want it to be the like state specific, right? So we're gonna say state is, I don't know, Washington. So now we're gonna set it up and we're gonna say that you've got all these different types of fields. So predefined fields, that's gonna be your email address, the title, first name, title in this case being more like Sir, Mrs., Doctor, that sort of thing. And then your job title. And then one of the predefined fields that I really like is converted. So if you have this, if you have your campaigns synced with a CRM like Zoho CRM, and you've got your leads coming in and your contacts coming in, you can say, these are the leads that have been converted or not. So actually, I like that better. Let's go ahead and do that. We're gonna say converted or not converted. So these are gonna show us if we say the is converted is true, but we don't want that, we want it to be is false. So this is going to give us anybody in our CRM system that has not been converted. Now, we can have a second bit of criteria, and this works in the way that the criteria is set up. This works similarly to the CRM and how you set up criteria for workflows. If you watched any of those videos, I'll go over it again really quickly here. So if you've already heard this, take a sip of your coffee. So what you're gonna do is, let's say we want only the non-converted where they live, where the state field is not empty. Let's do that one. So now we're gonna go back to our predefined fields and we're gonna look for state, and we'll say is not empty. So in this case, it's going to give us back any leads in our system that have not been converted where the state field is filled out. And this and is very important because I can change it to an or, and that would give us any leads that have not been converted Whether or not the state field is filled out doesn't matter. It's just if they haven't been converted, or any contacts that have their state filled out at all. That could be converted or not. So we could get a mix of leads and of contacts that have the state field filled out. Does that make sense? So in this case, because we only want to see leads that have not been converted that have a state, we're going to change that back to and. So we're going to say not converted has state is what we'll call the name of the segment. And go ahead and click save. And from here, it just brings us to this, this kind of, I guess, details page about the segment itself, where it shows you the criteria that you've set up. And if we click on the contacts, it will show you a list of contacts that meet that criteria. Now, I think partially because this is a demo site, we're not seeing anything at all because nothing meets that criteria. So let's edit it and make it a little bit different so that we can have some results. All right, so I'm going to take away this second bit of criteria, and what I'm going to say is I'm going to say anybody whose last name doesn't contain a Z. There we go. So no Z last name. Go ahead and click save. And so now we're going to look at our contacts, and look, it went ahead and it grabbed all of our contacts that meet that criteria. So these last names, none of which contain a Z. We even have one that has no last name at all because we didn't put that in as a criteria. So if we wanted to, we could go back and we could add a second criteria to say where the last name does not contain a Z, but is not empty. So that's how to make and edit a segment. What's cool about this is now as you add contacts to your system, if their last name doesn't contain a Z, they're just going to plop into this segment. Now, that's probably not incredibly useful for a real marketing scenario. You'd probably want to set up things where if they're in a specific region, for example, like the state of Washington, or if they their job kind of fall, or their title perhaps is CEO, let's say, because you only want to market to CEOs at this point. So those would be more realistic segments that you might want to have. But now what you can do is you can create campaigns or even automations that are based off of entering a segment. So you could start an automation and say, I want it to send to this segment, and then anytime a new contact gets added to that segment, they start that automation. So you could have a drip campaign going where once they meet that segment's criteria, they just start receiving emails. So there you go. That's all for today. I hope you're having a great one. Woggle, woggle.